Artemus Toast here, and I made this upload because I don't know, not too long ago, I was watching a video, a Radiohead video on the YouTubes for one of their new songs, or actually it's an old song, but a newly released song called "I Promise." And while watching that, uh, beautiful song, great song, simple, just great, like all their music is, in my opinion. I started thinking about, you know, the Beatles, and I'm a fan of both these bands, a huge fan of both these bands, and I started thinking about it, and you know, would there be a point that you know Radiohead would be better than the Beatles? I mean, can anybody be better than the Beatles? Is there anybody better than the Beatles? And it really just comes down to personal opinion. Um, and in my personal opinion, that you can't change, so don't try. I mean, definitely offer your explanations. Why you think contrary to what I think. I'm welcome to hear. There's been comments, and I like looking at the comments. To my comment on that Radiohead video, which I'll link. I'll link the video itself. You can look for my comment. And the responses to said comment. It was a quick paragraph, a rough idea of why I felt that way. And, because a lot of people commented on the video, a lot of people looked at the video, I'm giving a more logical explanation as to why I feel this way. And once again, I'm welcome to hear other people's opinion, but don't try to sway mine. It's not going to happen. Um, and also, I'm not a fanboy. I don't know Tom York's dog's birthday. I don't know George Harrison's second cousin's, job. I just care about the music. If I say something incorrectly, correct me. But if I want to know something, that's what the Wikipedia is for. I listen to the music. I'm a musician myself. I appreciate the music. You know, and I'm just gonna get right into it. Make this short and sweet. This isn't scripted. This is actually my third take trying to explain this. So I'm just gonna make it short and simple. You know, First off, I'm not taking anything away from the Beatles. Um, there would be no Radiohead without the Beatles. There would be the face of music would not be what it is today without the Beatles. You know, that being said, here's some quick logic behind my conclusion that Radiohead is a better band than the Beatles were. And these are a couple comparisons that I was thinking of to try to kind of, give other examples not related to music as to why I feel this way. The first one being, Henry Ford did wonderful things with the assembly line and the production of automobiles. Enzo Ferrari made a way better car. You know, would there be Ferrari without Ford? Probably not. So there's one comparison. The Wright brothers are arguably the fathers of manned flight. Boeing makes a better plane. Boeing wouldn't exist without the Wright brothers. If you're catching my logic. Another example in relation to art. You know, Disney animators in the 30s were painting single cells. Stop motion single cell animation. Forgive me if I don't know the correct term, but you know what I'm getting at. Nowadays, it's computer generated. I'm not saying the artists were better back then or they're better now. It's just a different medium, or different tools for that medium. You know, Technology. There are a lot of purists, and I'm when it comes to music. I'm kind of one too. I have records. I love to listen to records. But that being said, I have MP3s as well. Um, If I have the time space, I'm at home, if I'm near a record player, I'm going to listen to a record. Um, if I'm in my car, if I'm on the run, I'm going to listen to an MP3 or a streaming service, or another format. Excuse me. Um, you know, I'm not saying one is better than the other. It's just a convenience factor. I'm going off on that tangent. Musically, in comparing the Beatles and Radiohead, uh, George Martin had a huge impact on the Beatles and their music. Um, I'm not saying he had everything to do with it, but he was had a huge part in their progression um, as musicians, at least early on. And I think that's something that often gets overlooked in relation to the Beatles. Um, Eleanor Rigby um, would not be the same without George Martin. And Eleanor Rigby is, the reason why I held up Revolver, in my opinion, this is, one of their greatest albums, if not their greatest album, in my opinion. Um, Once again, opinion, to each their own. Um, Once again, referring back to that, George Martin had a huge impact on, the recording and composition and production of Eleanor Rigby. Probably the defining track on that album, for its thinking outside the box and a progression in pop music as we know it, or knew it. Um, so there's that. I'm looking at some of these comments that people made on my comment calling Radiohead the greatest band, and you know, I noticed people saying that Tom York's the only songwriter, which isn't true. I didn't even have to the Wikipedia that to know it's not true. I'm just hearing it. Here the guitarist Greenwood has a lot of writing credit. The band as a whole, I think they, and once again I could be wrong, but it's not just Tom York. Um, on the Beatles side, obviously four credited songwriters. My personal favorite being George Harrison, because he was responsible for some of my favorite Beatles songs. While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Something. Here Comes the Sun. Taxman. So individually, a lot of respect to the members of both bands. Sonically, both great bands. There are many more layers to a lot of Radiohead songs, and the composition is great. The song structures are very innovative. The sonically, the experimentation is done right. And the same thing could be said for the Beatles as well. They did a lot in a very short period of time, and once again, all due respect to the Beatles. If it comes down to, in my opinion, one defining thing that can separate the Beatles or Radiohead from the Beatles, and quick side note here, given the opportunity, I would sell out in a heartbeat. I'm not gonna say that I'm above that, but you could never say that Radiohead sold out in traditional sense. I can't think of any Radiohead albums that were made purely for profit. I can't think of any Radiohead albums were with an accompanying movie. The only credit I could think of off the top of my head, and once again I could be wrong, is I remember Radiohead made an appearance on a South Park episode in the late 90s. Not taking anything away from the Beatles, I would do the same thing given the opportunity, but the Beatles never released an album where you could pay what you want. They never, as the Beatles, to my knowledge, they never released an album without a label. So if I could give any tie breaking you know, reason for my opinion is, that fact. It's purely about the music. Never felt that Radiohead sold out once again. And once again, I welcome, don't try to change my opinion, but I'm welcome, give your opinions. I'd like to read them, or even, reply with an upload. Um, you know, and I guess in on the other side of it, on the Beatles side, is, they planted a musical seed that has flourished into amazing things. But you know, I I think a lot of nothing could be taken away from the Beatles as far as their music. It's great, but in conclusion, in my personal opinion, for some of the reasons I previously gave in this upload, that's why I think Radiohead's a better band. I could go into the sonic nuances and the production. Once again, I could go into you know um, the fact that the Radiohead has two drummers now. This amazing audio landscape that they create now, that is just a continuation of a seed that was planted by the Beatles. Um, so that's pretty much it. That's why I think some of the reasons why I think Radiohead is a better band than the Beatles were. Let the hate begin. Artemus Toast out.